The Radeon 7, it's all 7 nanometers, but will we watch them fall? Will anyone in the universe ever compare? Oh, I've messed that up. Does anyone in the whole universe ever compare? See, it's a Prince thing. This music stuff, I don't know. It's Will. Oh, I've messed it up. All right, let's do this again. Yeah, listen, I'm a nerd. These intros, the reality here is that a guy named Mark, who's on our forum and hangs out and we do stuff on Twitter sometimes, sent me his Radeon 7. So I'm going to take a look at it. Now, Radeon 7, I mean, performance-wise, the numbers are already out. It's basically on par with an RTX 2080, and it costs about the same, maybe slightly less. But it's got 16 gigs of insanely fast HBM2. It's also probably a good choice for users of open source software. And so I want to do my own benchmarks and commentary and take a look. It's a nice heavy aluminium, attractive card. It is insanely heavy. So this is based on the same 7 nanometer GPU that we saw at Computex last year that entered wide availability at the end of 2018, but it was the Radeon Instinct, which is more of a data center product. So this is based on the same silicon, but this is the gamer version. So it's 60 compute units instead of the 64 that we saw in the top end 7 nanometers, but it's 7 nanometers on the desktop. Is this the first 7 nanometer device that you can buy for a desktop computer? I think so, unless you're a crazy person and going to put an Instinct in your desktop machine, which seems a little insane, but yeah, I think so. Dual 8-pin power. It's got the nice attractive Radeon logo, plus the little doohickey in the corner. We've got 3 DisplayPort connections and 1 HDMI connection, and 3 fans, which are rather fast. All right, so we've got the gaming benchmarks. I mean, gaming benchmarks are useful, but there's more to it than just the raw numbers, like the raw performance. And yeah, basically, the Radeon 7 is on par with an RTX 2080 from the competition. It's a good card. The Radeon 7 really, I mean, there's not anything wrong with it. It's a really good card for what it does. The memory bandwidth and some off-label uses are really the claim to fame, but if we talk about like Tomb Raider and the other game performance benchmarks that you're looking at, it's about where you'd expect. But it's really tough for me because there is more here than really the benchmarks would let you know. And that has to do, I think, with like frame timing and frame pacing. And I don't know, for whatever reason, it feels like the RTX 2080 regresses a little bit. Now in Tomb Raider, at least in Rise of the Tomb Raider, I have left the benchmarks out because something very odd is going on with Rise of the Tomb Raider and the RTX 2080. There's weird stuttering, and it seems to be down to a VRAM issue, so we're omitting that. And I know that Rise of the Tomb Raider works fine with 8 gigs of VRAM because it works fine on Vega 64. So in terms of AMD, one-upping their portfolio, Radeon 7 is a dramatic improvement over Vega 64. They've really done a good job. The card runs a little hot with the default fan profile, but they've updated the drivers, the adrenaline drivers, so one-click undervolt. And I would recommend that everybody do that because at that point, a lot of the complaints that I would have about heat and noise are basically gone with not even really a measurable loss of performance, maybe 1%. So I really think that AMD had an opportunity here maybe to position this card as something more interesting than the competition for creators and for people that are looking for high performance. Because with 16 gigs of VRAM and what AMD is doing on the software stack side of things, I really think that there is a tremendous opportunity for content creators. Now, I don't know anything about the production numbers. I don't know if those are substantiated or not. Like, is AMD in full production on this? There were rumors they were taking a loss, but this industry is really cutthroat. Those could be rumors that start by malfeasance. I mean, we don't really know. This is a 7 nanometer product, and AMD has been producing the same silicon for the enterprise market. And so there is maybe some argument that like, well, you know, these are leftover dies from that, or these are, you know, there's still production lines. I don't know. I'm not privy to any of that. This is a good product for what it is standalone. It's at a pretty good price point. It could be at a more aggressive price point, but I really think that AMD could point out that this card has some of the features of like the RTX Titan. Now the RTX Titan has, you know, of course, more VRAM, but like say, you know, the Titan V or something like that, you know, in terms of content production, because you've got the Quadro at the high end for content creation and content production, but you know, those can be upwards of $10,000 cards. And unless you get the $10,000 card, the gaming performance is not that great. This card is under $1,000 and has mind-blowingly crazy performance for Premiere rendering. So insane that we're doing a separate video on that with Epos Vox, because his Premiere workflows are pretty interesting, and you're gonna have to stay tuned for that. And that is really where Radeon VII shines. The driver stack is pretty stable. I think AMD has learned its lesson. There's also the Pro driver stack, and AMD announced that they're going to support this card in a Pro context. And there's a whole other conversation we can have about what that really means. No, it's not going to supplant the workstation cards, because there's still things like SolidWorks certification and, you know, all the software certification. You're not going to be able to drop this into your professional workstation and be able to call up Autodesk and get support necessarily. But for content creators and people that are looking for a budget option that will probably work in most scenarios, and we've done extensive testing with Adobe Premiere, this is the deal of the century. So bottom line, if you're buying a card strictly for gaming, you will be fine with this card. But it's not like, it's at parity basically. It's not like this is clearly far and away the best deal. If you're doing content creation, or you're doing something where you can really put that 16 gigs of HBM2, which is insanely fast memory, to work, then this is pretty good. If you're sensitive to frame times and frame pacing and that kind of thing, subjectively, I had a better experience with this card. I think AMD's done a pretty good job, and if there aren't like, if AMD's not bleeding from production costs, and if AMD can produce these in quantity, then I think they've got a winner on their hands. They really do. It's a very impressive card. Good job, AMD. Also on open source on Linux, this is going to be on the Linux channel, but on open source, basically plug and play. It's really nice. I mean, we had some issues with like the RX 590. This card, solid, a solid experience on Linux. So workstation-ish, this is a highly recommended card. It is an amazing value for certain kinds of workstation-ish loads, especially around video production with, say, Adobe Premiere. This is the card. For $700, it's a great deal. But, you know, there's some gotchas. Wait for the other video. I'm Wendell. I'm signing out. This is Level 1 Forum. Oh, crap. I'm starting to ramble. That means it's time to go. I'm Wendell. I'm signing out. Find me in the Level 1 Forums. Radeon VII.